Welcome to Metal Riffs TV. I'm your host, Lethal X, and I'm with Darren Housholder. How you doing tonight, Darren?
Great, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
In case you don't know it, Darren is a phenomenal guitar player. He has a repertoire in the industry as being one of the best instrumentalist guitarists out there, and he runs neck and neck with some of the other ones that are more famous. But we're going to jump right in and talk about some of his influences, which kind of leads into what I was just saying. So take it away.
Okay, hey. Okay, thanks for having me. And instrumental guitar, the Shrapnel Records and Mike Varney and what that was, and that really came about from Yngwie Malmsteen in 1983, I think it was. And Shrapnel, was Mike Varney. He wrote the Spotlight column in Guitar Player magazine. Remember when there used to be magazines, and so what that was is that people from around the world would send in cassette tapes. Remember cassette tapes? And he would spotlight talent. So Yngwie had sent him this tape from Sweden, and Mike was like head over heels, like, you got to come to America. We're going to record a record. And then the label was born from that. So guys like a lot of like me and a lot of the other guys, we would really, oh, who's the next guy, right? And I want to get into Spotlight. And if you get into Spotlight, it doesn't mean you're going to get a record deal, but that really brought about Shrapnel Records. And basically for me as a guitar player, I started playing in 1980. And I started playing the guitar. I just turned 15, so do the math. And right at the time that Back in Black came out, and so I learned like every song on Back in Black. Van Halen 3 had just come out, and I was learning, like, I love Jimi Hendrix. This is Axis Bold as Love tattooed on my, that, and the guitar. So and Ted Nugent, fucking love Ted Nugent, man. And Foghat and Blue Oyster Cult. Like, I love rock guitar, rock music. Journey, man. I learned, all that stuff in the early 80s. And then when I heard Yngwie Malmsteen, it was like, oh shit. Like, Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads were gods, But when I heard Yngwie, it was just like, oh God, I got to go after that. And that, and then that's where I really kind of began, like, that whole like journey away from like just being in a rock band to like wanting to like get into that higher level.
Yeah, so and that's a little backstory on you, and now you've got a new album you're putting out that I think you kind of want to talk about a little bit. If I'm not, I'm just
Well,
being kind of facetious here, but
we'll leave it at that.
there's
So,
some really good tracks on that, and it's got some really good hooks in them, and there's a few songs on there I like. But let's talk about how did this album come about? How did you just sit down one day and say, I think I'm going to make this album, and this is what I'm going to put on it?
yeah, I sat down one day for 30 years, and well, my first Shrapnel record came out in 1992, and it was literally at the time that Nirvana came out. And Nirvana Nevermind was basically Nevermind guys like me and everyone else. And where, look, and these guys were deservedly so, but like all the guys that came before me in Shrapnel, Paul Gilbert, Marty Friedman, Jason Becker, Vinnie Moore, Tony McAlpine, Richie Kotzen. Did I say Paul Gilbert? I'll say Paul Gilbert again. Racer X, Greg Howell, and all these guys, and deservedly so, the Guitar Player magazines. And so in 1991, I did a track for Shrapnel Records, Ominous Guitarist of the Unknown. This had Ron Thal, Bumblefoot, amazing guy, a bunch of guys, Todd Duane, Joy Basu, myself. And then I was kind of the first guy that got like the record, the first Shrapnel record out of it was a pack of 10 guys. So my record came out in 92. And then I did another record in 93, and then I did my third Shrapnel in 95. And that was my last Shrapnel record. So a lot's happened in between. The kids were coming. I went out to, at this point, I'm like 32, 34 years old, and I just retired from music. And I built my business into what it is now, which is Pharma. It's a fitness supplement brand. It looks like this, and and like this. And but along the way, there's a hole in my heart. There's a big void of music, and I went for about between 99 and probably 2007, where I just really basically didn't play guitar. every once in a while, right? And then, I was in a band called Love Hate in 1993, and the guys asked me to go to England and play some shows, 2007, 2008, 2009. So I kind of got going again. And then in basically 2017, Jizzy Pearl asked me to do his record. And we did another one in 2020, and we did one that just came out here this year in 2025. So along this way, wouldn't it be great to write another record? And so I wrote a song called Ava's Dance in 2019, and we made a video that's on YouTube. And so 6 years ago, right? So in between that song and now, I was able to piece together a total of 9 songs. One of the magical things about that is Ray Luzier, the drummer in Korn, the greatest. There's a lot of great rock drummers. He's to me the greatest. And he had played on the Shrapnel Records that I did. Those 3 records. We had a band called Freak Power Ticket in the '90s, and he went off to David Lee Roth, Army of Anyone, and Korn. And so I got Ray to play drums, but Ray has a best buddy that lives real close by. His name's Billy Sheehan. And so Ray and Billy played on this Ava's Dance song, and we made a video. It's been out on YouTube for some years now. So when I started piecing together these other tracks, I was fortunate to have both of those guys play on these songs. So I'd sent them like 5 songs where I played all the guitar parts to like a click drum machine. They did all their tracks. They were emailed back. And then I had 3 last songs that I went to Nashville to Ray's house, and I sat and recorded with Billy and Ray, which was amazing. And that was, January, February, March, and we kind of got the thing. And so basically I've released it in September of 2025, A Vision for You. So it's 9 instrumental songs. It's the first album I've done in 30 years. And look, I want people to listen to it. If people think my first CD was one of the really good Shrapnel records, and this is better. This is the best stuff I've ever done. Musically, for me, when I'm writing instrumental guitar, when I'm writing music, it's just like, I noodle, right? And then when something comes about that's cool, I keep it and I keep working and developing. But I'm really, it's just the hooks. Like, from people that know my music, know that like I've got a niche for rhythm and like melody and kind of an attitude, So I come up with a. Like the spunk thing that I've always been just. There's a backstory to that, but unlike Yngwie Malmsteen, like I really fell into that sort of the groove thing, melody, and just writing hooks, and that's why I love Joe Satriani. I mean, so many great guitar players, but Joe Satriani especially. Well, first you go Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck, There and Back and Blow by Blow in the 70s. I had a cassette tape with like Blow by Blow on one side and Wired on the other. And then Blow by Blow, maybe it was Wired. Okay, yeah. There was a later one that came out in 1980 with Jan Hammer. And so that was the stuff, predecessor to Joe Satriani. But when I was at Berkeley from 84 to 88, like the kids in the dorms, like they had every record. Like I'd never really heard Frank Zappa. I never really heard Mahavishnu Orchestra. I never really heard all this other stuff. And so like kids had, like the very first Joe Satriani was Not of This Earth. And when I heard that, it was like, holy shit. And then Satch Boogie came out and he blew up, Surfing with the Alien, right? But I heard the stuff before that. But when I was at Berkeley, man, I was at Berkeley from 84 to 88. And by the time I was in there for the first year, here's a funny story. So Berkeley has this thing with ratings, and it's all jazz. So you get like a number for like how well you read, play the chords, improvised jazz, right? So I got the 3s, right? That's as far as I got. I mean, Pat Metheny had all 9s, right? So, and I'm trying to learn the jazz. I'm in there. Like I thought I knew jazz. I thought jazz was like Jeff Beck and fusion, and no, it turns out it's not. Jazz is really, you go from Charlie Parker to John Coltrane to like you know, all this Keith Jarrett, all this stuff. And so I'm doing like the audition. I'm playing like, "Have you met Miss Jones?" Da, 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 da. And I'm soloing. Then I start doing all this stuff, and you know, the guy's like, "Yeah, okay, you know, next." And I'm like, "Well, you know, how did I do?" He goes, "Do you really want to know?" And yeah, how did I do? He goes, "You sound like you're masturbating on your instrument, and you're the only one that's enjoying it." I'm like, well, I don't know if that sounds like it's a compliment exactly. And you know what? After that, I was like, you know what? Fuck jazz. So I started doing these recitals at Berkeley called Rock in a Jazz Place. So I would play Far Beyond the Sun, you know, Icarus Dream Suite, you know, Little Savage, YRO from the first Racer X. My drummer, Jay Gates, had played with Paul Gilbert. So I got a cassette, sorry, Paul, I got a cassette tape before it was released. Not that I fucking nailed it, but like I learned it, worked on it very hard. But I just went head on into Yngwie, Steve Vai, Paul Gilbert, just head on. I went to the classes. I did all my stuff really well. But I was a guy, like on a Friday or Saturday night, I was in the practice room. I was a complete nerd, complete geek. You know, I was in music school. I didn't smoke weed. You know, I drank barely. You know, I was just like a total whatever. I mean, I was there to be the greatest guitar player I could possibly be. But that is really what I did. And I did about 4 or 5 recitals with JD was the bass player that plays with Black Label Society. JD's a monster. I've known he's been a monster 40 years, 40 years ago. And that's what I did throughout Berkeley. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to fucking march to the beat of my own drum. And then when I graduated in 1988, they asked me to teach there. So I taught that summer after I graduated. And then I was sending tapes to Mike Varney and John Sticks. So Mike Varney, you know, so I got into like right when I graduated, I had sent a tape with songs I had recorded at the Berkeley studios. So I sent it to Mike Varney and I got into Spotlight. I was in the Vernon Reid, November of 89 or 88, I think it was. And 88. Well, okay, I made it, right? No, not exactly. So I started making more and more songs and sending them. So I wrote instrumental songs. I'd get up in the morning, I'd play for 4 hours, I'd write and record for 6 hours, teach guitar lessons, get up the next day. I was playing 16 hours a day. Like once I graduated from Berkeley, like I just played and played and played and wrote and wrote. But then rather than get a Shrapnel deal, he called me up one day with Jeff Pilson on the phone. So the band Dokken had just broke up. So this is summer of 89. So I'm still in Boston suburbs, graduated from Berkeley. 88 I taught, you know, I'm up there, I'm writing and writing throughout 89, just writing and recording. And so I flew out to LA and I auditioned and I got the gig. So I moved to LA in October 21st of 1989. I remember the day because Guns N' Roses opened for the Rolling Stones at the Coliseum, and like people that I know like went to that concert. That's the day I arrived in LA. And so it was Jeff Pilson, Vinny Appice, and a bass player called Michael Diamond. And War and Peace, like we got a record deal with Charisma that had Paula Abdul, and not me. The guys chose the management that managed Paula Abdul. And, you know, Paula Abdul's on Charisma, War and Peace is on Charisma. We're going to like, Charisma's going to blow us up. And Charisma's like, no, that's not a rock management. We're not signing you. And the management basically couldn't get us another deal. And then everything just, I got fired. Vinny left the band. He did World War III with Mandy Lyon and all that stuff. And it was just basically me and Jeff. And it just wasn't, it's just, the air had been left out of the balloon. And, you know, I don't know, I opened my mouth and Jeff fired me. But Mike Varney's like, hey, let's do a record. Write a couple of new songs. So I wrote a song that became Cakewalk, a couple others, but I had like all of my, you know. You know, I had Noodle Surprise. I had, you know. this like funky instrumental stuff that I did. And so I released the first CD that came out in March of 1992. And then I'm going to keep rambling. And then I just wanted to be in a band, man. I really wanted to get out of the four walls in my 8-track and just play, you know. So there's a series of things that happened. I was in Wasp for almost 2 weeks, and then I got fired. I was in Enough's Enough for a weekend, and I recorded a bunch of stuff for their Strength CD, and then they told me to go home. And then I got into the band called Love Hate. And this was after they got dropped from Columbia Sony. And I ended up recording the Let's Rumble CD, the album that had Spinning Wheel. You know, made a video. We went to the UK, did a bunch of in-store signings, big gigs. We toured around the country. And you know, and at the end of the day with Love Hate, it wasn't my band. It was kind of doing this. And after about a year, I was just like, you know, and so I left Love Hate and I started working with Ray Luzier. We found a singer from Seattle because, you know, it was 94, 95. And we called Freak Power Ticket. And it was just, it didn't work. Basically, like we wrote all these songs and did all this recording and performances, but like we just didn't have a cohesive vibe. Just wasn't it, you know? And at that point, Ray joined David Lee Roth. I went to Dave's house twice, wrote a bunch of songs, and he would like sing along to them. And I thought maybe I was in there, and it turned out that it wasn't meant to be. And then 90, and then Freak Power Ticket with a different drummer, and then basically I'm like, all right, guys, I retire. I had started. Look. When my son Dorian was born in 1996, so 1995, right before Dorian was going to be born in March, I went back to doing telemarketing, which I did. When I was in music school, I did telemarketing. I mean, I'd work a job for a week, get fired, for a day, for a month, get fired. Man, it's just fucking hard, right? It's really hard to do. But I eventually got pretty good at it. So when I came out to LA, I didn't work a straight job for like 7 or 8 years, But I went back to work in the phone room selling stuff on the phone. And long story short, it ended up I got pretty good at it. And good enough that I qualified to buy a house. So Dorian was born in 96. I bought my house in 97. I quit my job and started out of the garage in 98. 99, I retired from music. It was just like, I got to do what I got to do, And fortunately for me, I had a business that was doing that. And I had a music career that was doing that. It's like, you know what? I just gotta. It was an easy decision, but it left a void in my heart. I mean, ever since I was 15 years old, man, every waking moment is like, I'm gonna just try to be the best. I wanted to be the greatest guitarist in the world. I worked really hard at it. I did everything I could to do that, and it just, whatever. And it doesn't matter. You gotta write good songs. You gotta be a singer. You have to meet the right people. It's really hard to do, right?
And today's world is a completely different thing than it was back in the 80s and 90s. There seems like there's somebody every day popping up somewhere brand new, like this is the new band, listen to this band, this is that. And when you break them all down, they all sound pretty much the same. There's not a whole lot different between many of the bands out there today. It's like the same set of chords, which is much different than what you do. Your
Yeah,
stuff is not just, oh, let me just put it on repeat. Let me just add a few new things. Oh, I got a new song. So I mean,
yeah.
there was 3 songs that when I listened to this album that I picked off, and that was Blue Sunrise, Morning Song, and Rome. Those 3 songs just, I don't know, something resonated to
Morning
me.
song. Okay, but no, let's go back. So Blue Sunrise is so One Rainy Wish on the Axis Photos Love that has Little Wing. There's a song called One Rainy Wish, and he's got all this. I shouldn't have this distorted sound that I do, but it has this like where am I going here?
not translating well over the recording.
It's a Hendrix kind of One Rainy Wish with like some gospel, and it was like that song, like it, dude. That's one of the greatest things I ever put together. Like when you hear that, like I'm proud of it. Like it was just like the beginning of it came about 12 years ago, and then another part of it probably a few years after that, and then it all like kind of came together as what it was like 2024 when I was in Croatia on a fucking on a catamaran with my family for 7 days, and I had a nylon string guitar and plenty of time, and I was just like I started gluing these parts together, and I mean, for me, like I work on something when I hear the melody in the morning when I wake up, I know I got something. I fucking know I got something, and I just got to finish it and keep working on it. And it's a combination of that. So, um, it's like I don't know the expression for it. It's like this I don't know, whiskey or wine, it takes like a long time to ferment and come about. Like that's how the songs are. They're none of them. On my records, a song called Drake's Way. I wrote that in 2 hours. And I don't know if it maybe sounds like it, but that's cool. A lot of different parts all go together, but that just came out in a flow. But this other stuff is like this whole um, morning song is just like the prettiest thing I ever wrote. Like I was thumbing on my nylon string. I'm on this morning meeting at 6:15 a.m. These Zoom meetings, right? And just thumbing around on my guitar, kind of half paying attention. And then it just came about. And then I had to play a melody that wasn't what the main guitar part was. And anyway, so like that's all like 6 months later, this thing, boom. I know a guy that's made a Vietnam documentary. He's using the song in the film. So I've got clips of the film with like the beginning and helicopters and guns and all this stuff. And then the morning song starts and it's just like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then Rome is the other one, that one you mentioned. So there's a Netflix or a Prime Video show called Rome, and um, it's about Octavia when he ruled Augustus, and like from his wife. So he was like the first emperor. So basically, after Caesar was killed, this was his grandnephew that became emperor. He had to get rid of Brutus and Marcus, and the Cleopatra and all that stuff, and then he became emperor, right? So the movie was the series about basically the perspective of his wife, but they had this theme. And it was like in a totally different setting, but like I would watch the show and I lifted the melody, and then I was just kind of like, I had my little kind of Al Di Meola, Santana vibe coming in there, and it's this whole thing that just came out like, but yeah, those are all three like totally different songs. But yeah, we were talking about the instrumental guitar and Shrapnel Records, and for me, Love Hate an important part of it, and Jizzy Pearl, he's the lead singer of Quiet Riot. He's been the lead singer of Rat, all these bands, but Jizzy's great. And he's pulled me in to play on his records. And that really was an important part of me, like I got to make my own record. Like, I'm running Psycho Pharma, and, I'm in the studio recording all his music. What about my music, and it took a little while, but then for me, the flow started happening from there.
Yeah. Well, I know we're going to wrap things up here in a few minutes, and then we're going to definitely bring you back because you've got a lot to talk about. Um, but I
Well,
think everybody should rush out and buy this new album, A Vision for You. I think that this album is going to be something different than what people are used to. I found, I listen to all kinds of music. I go from the heaviest of the heaviest to the 70s, in there, and maybe some 60s stuff, Creedence Clearwater, any of that stuff, you
love all
know.
the John
all
Fogerty.
that stuff. So I'm very eclectic. And I found some songs on this that I said, you know what? I really am digging this. It's actually got something different. It's offering something different than, the traditional stuff. And, his instrumental's different to listen to. Just listening to the instruments with no singing, no vocals. You're just able to concentrate on the music and not be distracted by anything else. And I think that's something that is kind of missing out there because there's not that many instrumental artists out there really anymore. I mean, you could classify some of Tool's songs that way because there's very little lyrics with some of it, with Maynard. But at the end of the day, I think that the album's really worth the listen, and I think people should take the time to actually check it out. And in this video, there'll be some links down below so you can go do that and you can purchase it.
Look, it's on. Look, I didn't print vinyl and CDs to sell. I want people to hear it. It's on iTunes. It's free. There's a YouTube link that you can go on. Darren Housholder. You can put that into Google. Go into YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, follow my Instagram. I promise I'm gonna start really posting a lot. But I was a guitar teacher for 10 or 15 years, and I love to pass along stuff. And the music, it's personal. It took a long time, and there's a lot in the music. I hope people will give it a listen. And you know, I own the supplement brand Psycho Pharma. So Psycho Pharma products are on Amazon, our website, and we have a massive distribution throughout the USA. Psycho Pharma products are also available in China. For the last 4 years, we've been in China. We've been in Australia for a little over a year now. We have two different major retailers in Australia. We're in Mexico a little more than a year. We've been in there, a couple of big vendors in Mexico. But this past, last month I was in Dubai for the Dubai Muscle Show. I have some partners in the UAE, and I'm in India. Our psychopharma products are being made in India and will be on HealthCart, Flipkart, Amazon India. But this past year, we were at the FIBO is a international fitness show in Cologne, Germany every year. So we've done that 3 times. So this past year, we had the big booth, we had the PA, the loudspeakers, we had a lifting contest. We're playing Slipknot and Korn and Seven Dust and all this stuff, and people are lifting. And then I plug in the guitar and I start playing, Welcome to the Jungle. I was playing Crazy Train, Back in Black. I was playing the Rocky theme. Dun, 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 playing it like, so the fitness brand, supplement brand Psychopharma and my music are all intertwined. Our fat burner is called Far Beyond Driven. So I own the trademark for Far Beyond Driven in a supplement category. I have an energy shot called Crazy Train. I own the trademark for Crazy Train in a dietary supplement. Our testosterone product is called Thunderstruck. Um, and the point is that I've come full circle where I've got an amazing life with my wife and 3 kids and my business and my music, and it's like I'm doing all of that. We're I've been with the same girl since 1982. Dorian's 29, Damon's 25, Devin's 23. Our granddaughter Ava's 9. I just turned 60 years old. I feel better than, I'm, dude, it's like, I'm here to tell you, like 40, 50, dude, I'm 60. I did 12 miles this morning on the Peloton in 30 minutes and 500 crunches, and I hit the gym in the afternoon. I do it every day. I play every day. My business, it's like, I mean, life's really good, man. We're going to Virgin Islands for a cruise. I rent catamarans, man. We live on the boat for 7 days, and we just fucking lost at sea. And so love it. Life's great. And I set to do this whole thing with music. It didn't go the way I planned, but with what I'm doing now and where my life's at, it's even better than I wanted. Like it's actually beyond like my wildest dream what I'm able to do right now. But I went through a lot of dark times, along the way. Those days are hopefully all behind me. I would just tell people to, get a routine. If music is what you really want to do, just put it in your day. Make it a habit. Put it in your day. Half an hour a day. could lead to an hour, 3 hours a day, a half an hour a day constructive. You might write 9 songs in 6 years. I
Hey,
wasn't playing 6 hours a day. I was playing about 30.
I want to thank you for being with us tonight, Darren. It's been a pleasure interviewing you. And everybody, take advantage of these resources that he put out there so you can actually go out and take a listen to this new album. It's on YouTube. Like I say, it will be linked down below. And until next time, have a good one and rock out to the metal.